Hello everyone and welcome to the Traphagen Guitar Workshop. Today we are going to talk about taking care of your guitar. And we have lots of things on the workbench here, and so we'll go through them one by one and help make it easier for you to care for your guitar. The biggest threat to your guitar is the lack of humidity. And I know a lot of you have probably heard several things about this these days, but I want to go through it because there's some things they didn't cover. It is possible to over-humidify your guitar, but it's pretty rare. Your guitar is most comfortable, just like we are as people, between 40% and 55% humidity range. When we start getting higher than that and it starts getting more humid, your guitar is going to start sounding a little thuddy and a little dull. If it gets lower than that, the wood's going to shrink, your action's going to go down, you could have buzzing problems, your skin is going to start to itch. Like today, it's beautiful outside, but it's here in the Pacific Northwest, but it's only 28% humidity. That's terrible for a guitar. And because it's cold outside and the heat's on, that causes the humidity to go down even lower. Now, if you live in southern climates, let's say near Los Angeles, for instance, what happens there is you get hot winds called the Santa Ana winds, and that drives the humidity down. So that's also very bad for your instrument. It causes it to dry out and shrink and crack. So we're going to talk about today what we can do about humidity. So the first thing you need is an accurate hygrometer. The hygrometer is what measures the relative percent of moisture in the air, or the relative humidity. This one is purchased from a hardware store. It looks very good. It's got a thermometer on the top, hygrometer on the bottom. It's terrible. It reads at least 20% off of what the actual reading is. This was one I got from Planet Waves. It's okay. I used to get a bunch of these at a time, and I would lay them out on the table, give them a few hours, and they would all read within a few percent of each other except for maybe 2 out of the 10. Those would be 15 to 20% off. The only thing you could do with them is throw them in the garbage. They're no good anymore. So the only hygrometer that I trust, other than my trusty sling hygrometer, which is what they use in laboratories, and you spin it, it has 2 thermometers, one dry, one wet. There's a wick in here, and you put water in it, and it makes the wick wet. The cooling action of that, and you spin it. And you spin it in various parts of the room. You read what the 2 thermometers say, then you slide it back together, and there's actually a gauge here. And you line up the 2 readings, and it will tell you what the actual real humidity is. They're very accurate, they're cumbersome, you don't really want one of those. So what I use is I use this digital hygrometer, which you can buy digital hygrometers in lots of places, but they're not necessarily accurate. This one is from a company called Boveda. Now, Boveda was first known for doing humidification systems for cigar smokers and for your humidors, but now Diodario has used their packets, and Diodario's come up with a system. They got it from Boveda. Boveda does the same thing. So Boveda is spelled B-O-V-E-D-A, and you can go online to boveda.com and go on their website, and you can find hygrometers and these packets. They have a musical instrument section there, like an accessory section. Now, why I like this hygrometer more than others is because you can calibrate it. When you buy this, it's only $20. When you buy this from them, they will send you this packet with this Ziploc bag with a packet inside, and at 79%. You put this little bag is rated at 79%. You put your hygrometer in it, you seal off the bag, just a Ziploc bag, and it stays in there for 12 to 24 hours. They say 24 hours. 12 is fine, and you can read what it actually says. Then you know if you're a few percent high, a few percent low. You turn this dial. You would start this dial in the middle, and then you can turn it either higher or lower to adjust it. It's the only hygrometer I know of that you can adjust, which is why I like it, because then you know it's accurate. I have some older style ones hanging around the shop. I have 3 hygrometers in my shop and 1 in my display case in my office. And they're all like this, or I have an old one, that's the old spring one, but I can calibrate it by using this, just by turning the dial. Now, what do you do if your humidity is too low? If your humidity is too low, you have to humidify your guitar. Why it's in the case, there's a lot of different methods you can use. The original one was this snake one. It was called a damp it. And there's a sponge inside. You would soak this, get it wet, squeeze it out, and then you put it in the sound hole hanging from the strings. Well, the problem with it is often people wouldn't dry it out enough and it would end up dripping. Or just that concentration of moisture on the back, on the back, let's say it was laying right here on the back, it would crack right there. So these are not used anymore. The bowed instrument people still use these some. They can hang them like for a cello and they won't touch the back, but they're not great. So I would not use a damp. The best one I would use, one of two, is this is an Oasis. This is made by a company called Oasis. There's gel pack inside. You fill it with distilled water or bottled water is fine. And it gets all puffy looking and you hang it in the sound hole between the strings. It doesn't touch the back. It will not drip. These are excellent product. You can buy them at Strings by Mail or other places online. This is the Diodario product, which I was talking about, that has the packets that they got from Boveda. You can see there's a B on this packet. There's a B on this box. That's the Boveda brand. And what it is are these packets. They're little miracle packets, and they're rated. I actually don't really know how they work, but they can rate them at different humidity levels. You buy the ones from them that say 49% from Boveda, or you can get this from Diodario. They use the same thing. And the packets will come in this bag. You can see there are 3 little packets, and then you have pouches like this. This is a pouch. This is a single pouch that goes in your case underneath the peg head right here. This one, when you take the packets out, you put them inside this pouch and you hang it inside the sound hole, right over the strings. The Boveda one is just like this. It'll say Boveda here instead of Diodario. You do the same thing with a classical guitar. They don't fit quite as well with a classical guitar because the sound hole is smaller diameter than steel strings, but you can kind of scrunch them, or you can just put this in your case. You actually don't have to put it in the sound hole. So you can put it in the case. As long as the case is closed, it'll be fine. And these will last approximately 6 months before they have to be replaced. The first time you use them, it may take a little longer if you're using a wooden case, because it has to absorb the moisture or put off moisture, depending on what the case may be, because they work both ways. If humidity is higher than 49%, it'll bring the humidity down. If the humidity is lower than 49%, it will raise the humidity up to 49% inside your guitar case. So they're very handy. They're excellent things. If you're really on a budget, you can get a plastic soap dish, drill some holes in the lid, cut a sponge, get it wet, rig it out so it's just damp, put it in the plastic soap dish and put it in the accessory compartment box in your case. You can do that as well. But these other products are quite good, and that's the ones I would recommend using. But you have to have, the key is an accurate hygrometer so you know what's going on. If you don't have an accurate hygrometer, you're either going to humidify or dehumidify your guitar. You're going to be going the wrong direction and you can cause damage. So when your guitar is over humidified, the wood swells. The action will swell. The action will rise because all the wood is expanding, so it's swelling up. I had a person put 2 of these Oasis in his guitar once because he thought the humidity was really low because he didn't have an accurate hygrometer. His humidity actually wasn't low. It over-humidified the guitar so much the top expanded and pushed the wood bindings, this wood binding, right off the edge of the guitar. I had to completely take the guitar apart and rebuild it. So you don't want to over-humidify. If you do live someplace that's very humid, you'll want to get a dehumidifier. That's a room dehumidifier to lower the humidity. And that way your guitar will sound the best. When humidity is really low, the wood will shrink causing your action to go down. And it can cause string buzzes on the fretboard. So you need to bring the humidity up. It can also cause, especially on nylon string guitars, because they have thicker, bigger fretboards, ebony is the densest wood on the guitar. It will shrink. And it will actually pull the top away right along the glue line, and it will crack the top right here and right here. The other place that often cracks is the center seam when the humidity is too low, whether it's nylon string, steel string, whatever. And then of course if you have rosewood back and sides, they will be prone to cracking as well. So you want to keep your guitar between 40 and 55%. If it's a little below or a little above, that's okay, but your guitar will sound the best at 45 to 50%. That's where it will sound the best, plus you will feel the best and your skin will feel the best. So what do you do once you take the guitar out of the case? Well, of course, most of us want to be playing our guitars, so they're going to be out of the case. The best thing you can do is have a room humidifier. I have a large one in my shop. It's about this long, so wide. This deep, holds 2.5 gallons of water, and it's running whenever the humidity, it has a humidity setting on it. Whenever the humidity is lower than 42%, my humidifier goes off. Now, if you have your guitar out of the case and you're hanging it on the wall, that's the worst place in the world for your guitar, because the temperature and humidity changes happen much faster when it's out, especially up higher, and your guitar will crack if the humidity is low. The other place that is not a good place to keep your guitar, and I know I'm going to get some grunts and groans on this, is a guitar stand. Keeping your guitar on a guitar stand, it runs the risk of being kicked, your dog coming by, knocking it over, breaking the neck, cracking the top, but it will also go through changes in humidity much faster than if it's in your case with one of these humidification systems being used. Now I know some of you say, oh, but when inspiration strikes, I just want to grab my guitar. Well, I have faith in you that your inspiration will last long enough for you to get your guitar out of the case and begin to play and bring to life the sounds and the composition you're hearing in your head. So please keep it in the case when you're not playing. But when you are playing, it's best to have a room humidifier. I have one in my shop. I also have one in my office where the display case is with guitars in it, because I want the humidity to stay the same all the time. Now when you go off to a gig, you can't, or a concert, you can't really control that, but you keep the humidifier in the guitar in the case while it's in the case. Some of you that are students and you keep your guitars at school and you put them in the locker, often during the winter times, especially in the northern climates, it's extremely dry in schools. So you need the humidifier in your case to keep the guitar humidified. So those are the most important things as far as humidity is concerned. Your really accurate hygrometer, and then your humidification systems, the Oasis one or the Diagario in the bags, the Bovita one. So, and then of course your room humidifier, if you can have one. I bought one larger than I needed, so that way I could have it set on low, and it makes hardly any noise at all, so you don't hear it. I have it turned off right now while we're doing the video, so you don't have to listen to the little blower. But normally it would be on and running at this point in time. Now we'll move on to another aspect of taking care of your guitar, and that's changing the strings. When you want to change the strings, I recommend getting this little bib. Now I have this one cut out for a steel string. I have one that's straight here for a nylon string guitar. When you change the strings, you slide it right on the top. It goes underneath the strings and fits right on the top. On the steel string, classical guitar, the same thing. Slides right over there. And so when you take your strings off, you're not digging your nails into the top. The string doesn't bang against the top, so that way you can protect the finish. I got these from Strings by Mail. If you don't want to spend the money, you just take a piece of card like this. This was an advertisement for something I got. It's nice and stiff. Just lay it on the top, behind the bridge. Nylon string guitars, just put it there. This person didn't use one, and he didn't tie his string on correctly. The string came loose, slapped, and hit the top, and that's why there's this dark mark in the top. If you would have been using this, that wouldn't have happened. So that's what I recommend for changing strings. Now, every once in a while, you're going to want to clean your fretboard. And now to do that, you have to take the strings off, all of the strings. Normally when you change strings, you take one string off at a time. You take the low E off, put the new one on, tune it up to pitch. Then take the next string off, take it off, put the new one on, tune it up to pitch. That way you keep your instrument up to pitch constantly. They don't really like having all the pitch taken off of them at once. Then they have to sort of reacclimate to the stresses and strains. But every once in a while you have to clean your fretboard. So you take all the strings off, you rub the fretboard with 4/0 steel wool. So that's steel wool you can get from the hardware store that has 4 zeros behind it. And you rub it and you clean it. I use a little top protector like this over the top, along like this, to protect the top when you're steel wooling it and cleaning it. Then once you've cleaned it all off and you've gotten all the little steel wool particles off, you can use a brush or a little vacuum. Then you want to oil it. Mineral oil is probably the best to use. It's what I use. And you rub it in, let it soak in for a few minutes, and then I take a dry cloth and rub it off. Then you restring your guitar. When you're doing that and you notice the ends of your frets feel sharp here, it's because the guitar has gotten too dry. And they need to be filed down. So you'll take the guitar to a qualified repair person, and they will file this down, or to a luthier like me, and they'll file them down for you so you don't feel all the sharp edges. Now, mostly for steel string players, sometimes you'll have to adjust the truss rod. They can either be adjusted from inside the guitar or from up here. I usually have mine set up so they're adjusted up here. You take the truss rod cover off. Often they're put on with screws, or 1 screw or 3 screws. I put on mine with double back tape so I don't have to drill more holes in the peg head. And the truss rod looks like this. This is what it looks like before it's put in the guitar. This is a double action truss rod. So here's your wrench. It fits in the end like this. And you turn it clockwise to tighten the truss rod. So now you see there's a big bow in there. So if your neck was bowed like this, you would tighten it by turning it clockwise to the right. If your neck has a convex curve, which is very unusual, but it happens every once in a while, you would turn it counterclockwise, and you can see it's pushing this bottom black bar down. It works okay, but it's very rare for that to happen. So don't adjust it too tightly. If you really have to crank on it, I would suggest you take it to a qualified luthier or repair person and let them do it for you. You probably want to loosen the string tension a little bit while you're doing that. On my guitars, classical guitars, because they have much less string tension on them, the necks rarely bow. And to ensure that, I put this piece of carbon fiber bar in the neck, and I embed it in the neck. You can see here's a cut-off neck for demonstration purposes. You can see the black inlay in there. That's actually 2 of these graphite bars. I found that to be overkill. You don't really need to do that. 1 was plenty, and it's embedded in the neck underneath the fretboard so you never see it. And it works terrific. I haven't had any problems with necks for the many, many years I've been using this. Now, the way you tell, there's 2 ways of telling. Is sighting down the neck. So you sight down the edge of the neck. So you're looking down the edge here or the edge here. If there's a big bow in it, that's when you need to adjust the truss rod. If it's a nylon string guitar and you can't adjust the truss rod, you need to take it to a repair person. And if it's really bad, which is unusual, but it does happen, they're going to have to take all the frets out, and they're going to have to re-level the fretboard and refret it for you. The other way you tell is you press. I like to press on the 12th fret and the 1st fret. You press like that, and then you tap on around the 7th fret. You hear that little noise? That's telling me that there's just enough space between the string, the bottom of the string, and the top of the fret. You want a little bit of bow in there. You don't want it dead flat. If you have it dead flat, you're probably going to get some buzzing in this area when you're playing, especially if you're playing aggressively. So let's see, what else can we cover? Oh yeah, just taking care and wipe down your guitar when you're done playing. The whole guitar. Wipe it off with a nice polishing cloth like this. I supply these with my guitars with my logo on it. Wipe the fretboard off, especially those of you that sweat a lot. You're going to want to wipe it down. It'll make your strings last longer. It'll keep your fretboard cleaner, and you won't have to clean it as often. Now, I often get asked about polishes. You can use a polish, that's fine. Just make sure the polish doesn't have any silicone in it. If it has silicone, and you later have to have a little spot repair finish done on your guitar, the finish will not stick to silicone. It won't work, and the repair person will have to sand the whole area off and sand it all down. So make sure your guitar polish has no silicone in it. Usually just a damp cloth, wipe it down, and then not wet, just slightly damp, and then a dry cloth like this will take off any grunge or any of that you might have a problem with. If you're having a problem with buzzing on your guitar, buzzes often don't come from where you think they're coming from. So a common buzz is these strings. The A string is touching right next to the E string here. It buzzes there. Nylon string guitars, it will buzz if it's barely touching the D and the G, barely touching the center wood here. If it's clear and you can play a note, you're fine. But if it's barely touching it, it can buzz there. The other thing that can happen is you can be fretting up here, and the string behind it is actually buzzing on the first or second fret. It's usually the first fret. That's when the nut is very low. And the only way to stop that from happening is to raise the nut a little bit. If you're in a pinch and you have to, and you're on the road and you just need to do something, you can loosen the strings, take the nut out. They're usually not glued in. They should just be pressure fitted in. Take a business card, cut off a piece of the business card and put it underneath the neck, or underneath the nut, between the neck and the nut. And that'll raise the nut enough and you won't get that buzzing anymore. If you're getting fret buzzes and you fret and it's buzzing in front, then you're going to have to take the guitar in and get your frets leveled. And any qualified repair person or luthier can do that. That's probably the main job they do in repair, are fret jobs. Another thing that can happen sometimes is the handles can come loose, or one of these screws is loose. If your tuners aren't working smoothly for slotted peghead instruments, steel string or classical, make sure you tighten these screws up. Not over tight, just so they're snug. If the handle is loose and you can slide it off, what I do is I use slow cure super glue. You take the handle, you slide it off, you slide it back on with no glue on it, just to test your nerves so you know how it's all going to fit. Then you put a drop of super glue in there, use the slow cure so you have time to get it on, and quickly slide it on. If you use the fast cure glue, it could dry before you get the handle all the way on. Then there's going to be a space there and it's going to be sticking out. So use the slow cure super glue, or again, take it to a repair person and they'll fix it for you. Let's see, what else do we want to cover today? Sometimes you'll have braces, a brace loose, and so it's buzzing. So you can, especially a back brace, so you can tap on the back and you can actually hear it rattle. Now there's no rattling here, the braces are fine, so you don't have to worry about it. Every once in a while it's a top brace. It's a little harder to tell with a top brace because there's so much tension on the top. It's actually holding it. But if it's a brace that's out in the perimeter somewhere, you can tap on it and you can find it. So a repair person would put a mirror and a light inside and a little probe, very thin probe, and slide it under the braces to test the braces. Then you'll have to re-glue the braces. So let's see, I think we've covered almost all of one more thing. For those of you that have French polish finishes, and that's usually nylon string pliers, I'm actually using a new kind of finish. It's called Royal Lac. It's shellac based, which is what French polish is, but it has a plasticizer in it, and it is extremely durable. I tried to take some off once it had cured. It takes 30 days to totally cure, and I tried to use just plain alcohol, which this guitar is traditional French polish. If I just put plain alcohol on here, it would eat the finish if you started rubbing it. With this new Royal Lac, it doesn't affect it at all. Acetone doesn't affect it. You could put a sweaty gin and tonic glass on here and it wouldn't affect it. But for traditional French polish, you're going to want to put something here, play with long sleeves, like so. So your sleeve is going over the top, or you can take your polishing cloth, put it over the top. If you generate a lot of sweat and a lot of body heat, where the guitar touches your chest, which is this area right here, you want to put your polishing cloth so it covers that entire area. So I just drape it over like that. And everything's good. So it's covering the back and it's covering the edge of the top where your arm goes. And that will help preserve your French polish so it won't get cloudy, it won't get a texture on it. Sometimes back here you'll actually get the texture of your clothing on it because your body heat is softening the polish. So that's how you can help protect that. And then you just wipe your guitar down when you're done, just like that, and you're good to go. So I think we've covered the basics on taking care of your guitar. We've covered humidity control. We've covered cleaning the fretboard, adjusting the truss rod, and various buzzes. Buzzes can be very infuriating sometimes, and they can take a while to find if they're not really obvious. So take it to your luthier or repair person. Make the buzz for them. Sit down and tell them this is where it's buzzing and this is how, and make sure they can hear it. Because sometimes the player hears it, but nobody else can hear it. So make sure you do that, and you should be good to go. So if you have any other questions you'd like to know about caring for your guitar, just go onto my website, traphagenguitars.com, and just go to the contact link and email me, and I'll be happy to answer any of your questions.